Let's see. Yeah, look where it's working. All right. I have a couple papers there, I think. No, they were, where are the papers? I put them out. Maybe they're in front of you, on that table there? The papers? Okay, anyway, the truth is that the papers I gave are only going to be good for the beginning of this year anyway, regardless. Because we're going to go into Vav and Zion, which I think I have copied. But then we're going to go into something else. Okay. Okay, so let's go into a little bit what's called a mum. So Allah Vav is very important, very straightforward. Reish Lamed Beis Siv Vav. Kol shehiskimu alav b'nei ha-medina shehu mum shemachzirin by mekach. Ze machzirin. V'chol shehiskimu alav she'ena mum harei ze eidei machzir boy. Elim pirish shekol noise v'noisen stam aminag ha-medina hu saimech. So he says over here that a mum is something that the derech ha'olam is to be makbid on. Okay? So that's very important. So there's a way you determine whether or not this is going to be, whether this is a mum to mivatal the is based on the minhag Medina. However, if you're medayik the lashon, there's one word over here that's very important. There's one diak. There's a diak over here that's very important. It says, Kol shehiskimu alav b'nei ha-medina shehu mum shemachzirin bo ha-mekach. In other words, the mum has to be that it's the minhag ha-medina is that people are makbid enough that they're machzir the mekach. Now this leads us into that there's two types of mumim. There's mumim that people are makbid on lechatchila, and there are mumim that people are makbid on b'diavad. Right? When I'm looking for something, yeah, look, lechatchila, I'm not gonna buy this type of thing or buy that because it's not really what I'm looking for. It's missing this, or it's a little dented there, or it's a little scratched there, or it's missing a feature or something like that. So I wouldn't lechatchila buy that. That's true. However, what happens? There's a whole nother threshold of mumim that I'm makbid on that mum to the point that I would go and be chayzer on the mekach. I would come back and return the item. It's a whole nother level. Okay, so the mum to be mevatel the mekach. Let's say now I'm a particular type of guy. I'm very particular. I don't want anything even with a scratch. Now most people, if they're choosing a brand new item, they see a scratch, they'll tell the guy, hey, you have a different one without the scratch. But if they come home and they buy it and they see the scratch, no, they're going to move on. So there is the derech ha'olam to be makbid, but it's not the derech ha'olam to be makbid and mivatal the sale. So am I allowed to go ahead and mivatal the sale now? Because I found a mum that there is a derech ha'olam on it, but there's no derech ha'olam to be makbid on it to mivatal the sale. So that's meduyik in the Shulchan Aruch that would not qualify as a mum to mevatel the sale, because he says kol shehiskimu alav b'nei ha-medina shehu mum shemachzirin bo mekach. It has to be that the mum is a mum that people are machzir because of that mum, and that's not the case in a scratch. A scratch is not the type of mum that people are machzir because of it, and therefore that wouldn't be considered a mum for this purpose.
If the type of store is one of a moment, for example, you have stores that are scratch and dents.
Okay, so then that's pashut.
Every single scratch and dent, where you know coming into it, you really don't.
L'chayra, something which is nicker on the outside, which is what they're telling you. L'chayra, then that's your responsibility to check it over. What? Right, if it's an internal problem that you don't know about, then you're not being makabel that. But when you're going in lechatchila to
that kind of a store, they're telling you it's a huge sign, as is, like.
Okay, so we're gonna learn about as is in the next sif. So, huh? On the site it's working?
Yeah, it's working.
Okay. So the shot is like this. However, let's say it's a scratch, and the derech of the scratch is that people are makbid l'chatchil b'nap b'diavad. So if it's a scratch that people are makbid on l'chatchil b'nap b'diavad, even though it won't constitute a mekach tois, but it will constitute no, it will lower the value, and therefore l'chatchila, of course, the moicher has to tell you about it. Okay? So that means if there's something wrong, the moicher has to be megala. That's called geder oina. Oina means the sale is valid, but there's something wrong. It's not. The price is not exactly the way it is because
if it reaches more than the sixth, or even the stomach.
You're not allowed to be ma'ani even less than the sixth. So if it's something which lowers the value, something which lowers the value, but it's less than a shtus, people are moichel it basically. Ava pike, you would have to be megal that. If it's a mekach tois, if it's something which is mamish mevatel the sale, then that's not going to be back. So I remember the Rabbi Shidduchim, Rabbi Zimmerman, when he was here, he spoke about in Shidduchim what types of things do you have to say lechatchila, what type of things should you say after the third, fourth, fifth date, and what type of right. So the way he was magdir it was things which are mekach tois type of information, which means the derech ha'olam would be that even if they would find out afterwards, they would want to get out of the relationship. Then you have to tell lechatchila.
In the beginning.
In the beginning. Those are, for example, apikarsis, the person has bad deis, or the person has internal machla, that a disease that is not possible to heal or whatever. And there's a third category. But something which is a lechatchila type of problem, but b'diavad you live with it. So that's what we're saying here also. That type of thing, that's more together. I know the mekach tois. So that type of thing, you don't have to tell them before you get started. You can tell them a little later. You can't close the deal until you tell them. But that would be the type of akapada that we're talking about. Okay. Now, which is pretty. That's Sivav, which is pretty straightforward. Okay. Let's get into Siv Zayin. It's good. It's good. So Siv Zayin. Siv Zayin is a job complicated. So it says like this: Kollel lokeach stam eno lokeach el hadavar shalem mikol mum v'impirish hamoicher ve'amar amanas she'ena tachoizer alai b'mum. I'm selling it to you al manas she'en ata choizer alai b'mum. If you find a mum, I don't want to hear from you. Harei zeh choizer. You can go back and get the mum. Again, the person said, I'm selling to you this, and if there's a mum, I don't want to hear from you. And you say, okay. You go home and there's a mum, you're allowed to come back and be mevatel the sale. What happened to the Tanai? What happened to the Mechila? What happened to this Mechila? Unless you say specifically what is the mum I'm referring to. You have to, right? Why? Or any mum, you have to specify the mum. You have to say the mum, any mum that would lower the value up to $10, up to $100. I want you to makabel. Anything more than that, not. That's good. But if you just say, look, I don't care if there's a mum, I'm selling it to you, then it doesn't work. So why not?
As is means, I don't know what it is, I don't know whatever, however it is, then you...
That's what I'm saying. It sounds like, now, it depends. It could be that what as is a type of sale that what you're saying is it's mutal on the lokeach, the responsibility to review the item. That's not really here. Over here, I'm selling it to you as though it's a perfect item, but if you end up finding a problem, don't come back to me. So now, what's pshat in this halacha? Pshat is that the lokech thinks that the moicher is just trying to like smooth it over. Even if the moicher says, look, there's no movement, don't worry. He just thinks he's smoothing it over. Also, the Sma brings a whole arichos. The pshat in this halacha is because a person cannot be makabel a davar she'ena mesuyim, and he can't be moichel on a davar she'ena mesuyim. It means you can't be makabel something which is not defined. You can't say, hey, how are you? Whatever, I'm here, and I'm going to buy this house, whatever price you tell me. Oh, and then you go into contract, you write a price. No, not that. Well, you told me any price. You can't be makabel something which is not defined. So the Shulchan Aruch is saying that the Shittas HaRambam that holds you can't be makabel something which is not defined, holds you can't be moichel something which is not defined. You can't just be moichel something and not define what you're being moichel. I'm moichel all mumen. No, you're not. It's not considered a mechila. But if you say I'm moichel any movement up to 10% of the value, I'm moichel any movement up to $100, so you've now defined your mechila, that works. But you can't come in and define and make an undefined mechila and say, therefore, it's going to work. Okay? So this is a very important halacha. So as is, I think, is maybe different, because as is we had before, that's something which is the derech of the lokeach. The minhag in the world is that the lokeach's responsibility is to check over the item. I don't think that's a mechila. That's a whole different idea. There, what you're doing is you're saying it's the type of item that has movement. So that's probably different. And anything which we spoke out last week, which is the derech to review before you use it, that will be your responsibility to go ahead and check it. We spoke out last week, something which is not the derech. For example, certain types of soil tests and stuff like that. We spoke out last week, the whole story. Certain types of soil tests, which is not the derech to do before you do that type of closing. So it's not the responsibility of the lokech. If you would speak out and say, if you find in a soil test a problem, okay, so you're defining what I want you to be moichel. But you can't be moichel something across the board. That won't work in this case. Okay? Why? Sheha-moichel tzarech leida hadavar shemoichel loy boi v'yefarish oisek ma mefarish oina. You have to explain exactly what you're being moichel. Okay? So that's a very important principle. So I think as is really depends. What are you saying? Really, it depends what you're saying. I mean, it could be what you're saying is that I want you to check it out, and that it's your responsibility to look for the basic movement, and that's the derech ha'olam that in an as-is sale, you're selling it. I want you to look it over. Fine, but again, things which are not the derech ha'olam to check for in an as-is deal, those would still be mevatel the mekach because that wasn't included in the mechila.
Even in as-is, how are you getting around the davar mesuyim? You're saying that he taka is machal for it to be worth nothing?
No, because what's happening over there is that you're saying that the mechila is because, not because I'm asking you to be mechil. The mechila is there's things that you could check for. So by you not checking for those things, you're being mechil on the things that you could find and you chose not to look for. So it is a shtickle more defined because you're saying there are things there that are visible to me. I could look at them now. I'm choosing not to be meichel, not to check them and to be meichel.
And even in an as-is deal, you're only accepting things that are visible, things that are latent, you can't really see. You're not makabel those.
Right? Is that true? In
general real estate or commercial, you always say before it's as is for the physical items, but things you cannot be able to find out, you make representations and you can go back for those.
Right. So in other words, so I would say it's two pratim. One is it's possible to find out now, and it's also the derech to do in a basic walkthrough, whatever it is, whatever the understanding of the responsibility of the buyer is, which is the derech that he's mechuyev to do. He doesn't do it, then he's being moichel that beferish.
In Svara, though, how does that work with
It is Mesuyim. There's things here that are on the table that it's not everything that, it's all visible things. Okay, so it's a little more mugdar. It's the things that, it's the derech olam. Also, there's a list. The derech olam is to check the windows, the this, the that. There's a list on it. So you're not checking. That we had last time. Okay? So
you're selling a car and it has a clunk every time you put it in a gear. It makes a clunk. And you're selling it, you say to the buyer, look, I recommend you get it checked by your mechanic, because I'm not a mechanic. I don't really know what the problem is. Do you have to disclose about the clunk? Or you can just say, hey, bring it to your mechanic.
It's something that in a normal pre-purchase check they would find.
Here, put the car in gear.
Okay, it's probably you would drive it, right? Okay.
He might not
But what happens if what happens if it's only that when it rains? Those cars, when it rains, I had a car. When it rains, then, you lose the power steering. You can't, too much water gets in the system, and all of a sudden you can't. I'm saying, so that, there's no way for him to know, because maybe he took it out and didn't drive when it wasn't raining. Right?
But something that's obviously observable, you don't have to disclose?
If you speak it out and you say, I want you to check it out by somebody, and there are things that he may find, then it's his mechila by not checking it. Now, if you're asking if you know certain things.
It makes a particular sense.
But if you know, you're supposed to be.
If you know, but you're telling him to check it over.
You're just supposed to.
What?
You have
So he has over here a case. The Pesach Tshuva brings a case, and that if you know something, it could be you have to disclose, and here's the reason why. The case is like this. The Ramah over here is a very hard Ramah. It's a very shocking Ramah in a way. The Ramah says the following: Mochar like kli shel eitz. You sold someone a wooden kli. Okay, here's a styrofoam cup. Okay? V'amar loy shu shel zav. Rabbi say this is a golden cup. I'm selling it to you for only 5 cents. Right? 5 cents, gold cup. So there's no way, no, I'm selling it to you for the value of styrofoam, but I'm telling you it's a gold cup. Then the guy, oh yeah, he buys it. Then he goes, Mekach, it's not gold. But you told me it was gold. Yeah, I told you it was gold, but look, it's not. Since the Lokach could see it, I meant it have sentimental value, like as if it was a gold cup.
It's gold color.
So that means that there's certain cases where the Lokach could say something, and it's still the Moicher could say something, and it's still completely the responsibility of the Lokach to not, fall for it, hook, line, and sinker. You can't just take the Moicher's word at face value. Look, it's not gold. What are you telling me? I meant, this is as choshev as gold. Whatever. So now, this Ramah can open up a lot of slippery slope for people, for moichrim to say things, and then all of a sudden, I didn't mean that. Come on, look for yourself. It wasn't that, obviously. Right? Okay, that's a good point also. What happens if, here's where it's interesting. What happens if you say it's gold and it is gold plated? Then the taka will be bekachtais. Because then the lokach, you don't have the taina. The lokach could say, I did see it. It looked like it was gold. Right? Now, it could be that, again, you would have to think about, what if the derech olam is to check it by somebody first before you buy it? It may be that falls on your responsibility. However, if you look in the Pesach Tshuva here, I don't know what I copied or what I didn't copy. It could be the Pesach Tshuva, it's already on the next page. Because it's a long Pesach Tshuva and it goes on to the NMB base. So I don't think you have it. But the Pesach Tshuva brings to the Shvus Yaakov. It brings a shai like this. Oidois Reuven shaistole tabas mezuyefes. Reuven had a mezuyef, a fake gold ring. What? Counterfeit gold ring. Shimon said, I want it. It looks like it's gold. V'amle Reuven, Eini Arev L'cha shehi toiva. I don't know if it's good or not. I'm telling you right now, I'm Eini Arev L'cha. I'm not guaranteeing the sale. Ki'ilu mistapik b'davar. I don't want to guarantee the sale. I don't know where I got this ring from. I don't want to guarantee the sale. V'amle Shimon, Eini chavetz ba'arver shlecha. I don't need your guarantee. It's poshut. V'kana mimenu. And then he found out that it's not gold. Reuven toyin shemoichel loy. Reuven said, you were moichel. You told me you didn't even want my guarantee. Even if I could give you a guarantee, you didn't want it. V'heshiv de poshut she'amekach batal. So Shus Yaakov says the mekach is batal. He could go back. Even though he told him, look, I don't know if it's gold or not. He said, I don't need your guarantee. It's because, of course, I don't need your guarantee. If it's gold, I don't need your guarantee. And if it's not, I'm coming back anyway. That's what he meant. Upshita. Now he says, this is what has to do with what you said. Okay, so when you're at fault, we don't allow the lokech's ignorance to trump the ramaos, the deceit, the deception of the seller. So when the seller knew for sure that it was counterfeit, and he comes and says, look, I don't know where I got it from, I don't want to take responsibility, listen, so he throws in these lashonis, and he knows for sure, then the Shvus Yaakov says, I have no suffix in that case, that he could come back afterwards and say, look, I wasn't interested in this. He's only mistapik in a case where also the moicher didn't know. So what that tells me is that those types of lashonis of, look, I don't know, could be, sometimes it clunks, whatever, check it out. If you know for sure, you have to tell him. And if he goes in kind of, betmimus, then that will trump, that will be mevatel the deal. I do think that that's talking about a case where it's not the derech to check to see if it's just plated or full gold. If it's the derech, then you're back to that. Then by not checking it out, you were moichel.
Anybody checks. If you go into a store and it says 14 karat gold.
Right, you're gonna, and it looks gold, and it is gold on the outside. You're not going to assume otherwise. It's not the derech. He told you could be. Okay, could be doesn't matter. You knew for sure, and you fooled me. You didn't tell me.
I mean, it says 14K on the thing. I mean,
right.
You wouldn't buy it otherwise. So it's
right.
clearly a counterfeit.
So now, that trumps the tmimus of the lokech. Okay. However, what happens if the seller also didn't know? So the seller didn't know. He told you he didn't know. You don't know. No one really knows, and you find out later. But he told you l'chatchila he didn't know. But the derech is you don't check for this. So he doesn't say there the halacha clearly, the Shvus Yaakov. But he says at the end of the shtickle, Ela afilu im hamoicher be'emes hayim mesupek mikomokom tzarich lahachzir du mechila b'toisi. Okay, the only way to get out of it would be to tell the guy straight out, there's for sure a problem here. Although, short of that, if you gave the impression, if you didn't tell the guy straight out, and it's not something that the derech is to check for, then he's going to have a taina mekatos, even if you told him it could be there's a problem. Okay? So I think that's the balance over here. It's something which everyone would be mevatel the sale for. It's something which you don't check for. He has reason to believe it's true, but he was told that it could be not true. It sounds complicated, but it's probably many cases that way. All right? No one wants to stay straight out. This is a problem. On the other hand, people kind of want to cover themselves, so they throw in this ambiguous lashon.
That's the litmus test.
you're not going to buy it, in and of itself is saying that I know there's an issue that people will be mocking on.
So if you know what's suitable, we gotta say
Well, if I
it.
can get it slide, I can slide and I can tie in the back. I kind of said this and that. So from the get-go, you're already playing a game, knowing that.
Right. That's your side. That's something something that you're not willing to disclose. There may be a reason for that. Something you're mistaken you should be disclosing. Probably you should be, right? So, but that's what the Pischei Tshuva. So I think that Pischei Tshuva is very big yesod. That's really what he's saying. That means that all the guarantees in the world and covering, until you say it straight out, for sure, the Shvus Yaakov says, if you knew about the problem, for sure, if you knew about the problem, that would mivatal the sale. He comes out, even if you didn't know about the problem, it would. So I would say that the only time that you could really assume mechila is if you say straight out a mechila, any mum up to 10%. So now you took away the NMB problem. Okay, any mum up to 10%, you took away the not Masuyan problem. Or if it's the derech to check, which we had before last week. If the derech is to check, then again, if you know, it could be you have to disclose. But if the derech is to check, it would be It would be ultimately, if you didn't check, it would be considered a mechila. Now, by the way, the Beis Halevi asks a question, ala Torah. He says, so according to this halacha, in Yana Diyoma, according to this halacha that we just learned, so how are the Klais able to say Nasa v'nishma? They were being makabel something which is in a Mesuyim. They were makabel something which had they didn't know what they were getting into. So we just said, you can't be moichel straight away, you can't be makabel straight up something until you know what it is. So how is Klal Yisrael able to say Nasa v'nishma if they didn't know what they were being makabel? It's in fact the Beis Halevi. He brings this halacha. So he asks this kasha. So Beis Halevi says Pashup Pshat, you say, what's the difference between a goy and a yid? A goy has 7 mitzvahs, and a yid has 606 mitzvahs more. So a yid has a lot more mitzvahs than a goy. He says, no, it's the opposite. He said, a yid, when we said Nasa v'nishma, he said, there's one exception to this rule. There's one exception to this rule that you can't be makabel something which is not Mesuyim. Okay, and you have to makabel something which is defined. It's just if you sell yourself as an eved, you sell yourself as a slave. So you don't know what the guy's going to want from you, right? Is he going to want from you to sew the buttons back on his coat, or is he going to want from you to, do slave labor? You don't know. But it's chal. But it works, right? You don't know what you're getting into. No, you got into one thing. The idea is that you're going to do the ratzon of the master. So he says, Klal Yisrael, said Nasa v'nishma, they said, we're here to do the ratzon Hashem. That works. Whatever Hashem's ratzon is, we're going to do it. So he says that a yid doesn't have 606 things more than a goy. A yid has 6 less than a goy. A goy has 7 individual mitzvahs. A yid has 1 mitzvah, do the ratzon Hashem. He says, we have one thing that we're doing, we makabel one thing. So Mamela, a goy, they would never makabel that. So they were told very specifically. But otherwise Nasa v'nishma wouldn't work. That's Beis Halevi says. What? Yeah. Anyway, so this I think is the general outcome of this. The Nesivus adds a point. He says that even according to the Shitas that hold that you could sometimes be moichel a davar she'einu mesuyim, okay? You could sometimes be moichel davar she'einu mesuyim. However, in this case you can't, because the derech of a person is that a mum is a defect in the product. A mum is a very personal thing. You could say, I'm really low maintenance, I don't care what it is. And then you see it, I'm not. There's a certain threshold that everybody has that they're not willing to accept certain things. So when it comes to a mum, in a defect in a product, it's not just about the money. It's about the quality of the product. So therefore, there's no expectation that you could just be moichel straight away everything. Because, so even the shitas that hold sometimes, you could be moichel, look, I'm moichel, whatever it is. But when it comes to, that's only monetary. When it comes to a mum, you can't expect someone to be makabel a mum that they don't know what it is. And therefore everybody agrees to this halacha that you never give up your rights to be mevatel the sale unless you know what it is. Or you give it a monetary value, you know what it is.
So that also, the mum is a personal type of issue versus the functionality of the item.
I mean,
It changes how the normal because now it's more subjective instead of objective. Before we were saying.
well, I know is very objective. I know is very objective. No, he's saying.
But movement is really, the sugya of movement is really more subjective.
Well, we said that movement over here has to do with the derech ha'olam, but he's saying, but
It's objective.
right, no, there is an objective, but the threshold of to say I'm moichel, said people are not moichel movement. That's really what he's saying. People are not moichel movement as much. They think they are, but until they see it, they're really not. So even the shittas that say you will be moichel mamain, but you're not going to be moichel movement. And that's sugyas in Kiddushin and Ksuvis, that people are not moichel movement.
That's a broad stroke. It depends on the person. Most people might say, for this movement, there's not much schlepping dealing with it, where you'll have a small percentage that says, no, this bothers me tremendously. It's the one thing I notice every single time.
Right. So if there's a mum, if there is a mum that the threshold is that the whole olam is makbid on it.
You're not mocking, but you are.
No. We already said before it goes by the derech olam.
I know that. So then we're going back and forth, objective, subjective.
No. You're saying what happens if I have? No, but it's not considered a mum in the mekach. You have a personal issue that doesn't give you a time of mekach tois. I made a valid sale.
I mean, if you spoke it out like I don't want it if it has this mum. Then
correct. Yeah. Right. You don't have a zchus to mevatel the mekach on your own personal, subjective mum that you created out of nowhere. It's not the derech olam to be makbid on it.
Unless you speak it out. So you can speak it out.
You're saying if the svara is I know das, I personally have no das over here. But when you're going into a sale, you're going into sell al das, the whole olam, unless you speak out otherwise. You're not neman to come tell me afterwards, oh yeah, but I don't like this thing. Right? It's like saying, it's the whole thing about when you're driving a car. So can you sue someone when you got into an accident to their insurance? Is it our car? It's not. So a lot of the places can say when you're driving a car, it's ki'ilu an unspoken thing. You're going to go. I'm allowing you to make a claim on my insurance. There's certain when you're going into a sale, you're going in al derech of you're going in gefi the derech ha'olam. You're allowed to say otherwise. Okay. The whole next set of halachis, this ches tesir, but really what I want to get into. I'll give a hagdama to it now, but we're not going to get to it till next week. Is the whole next set of halachas is what happens if we touched on it, but what happens if the value of the item is no longer the seller doesn't have any value left in the item. So by the time you return it to the seller, it's not going to have value to him. Now we spoke about like you found the fish fat or Moshe Feinstein's tshuva, but here the case was that you did something to the item that because of what you did, now he cannot use it anymore. But on the other hand, you could have only found out the mum by doing that. So let me give you an example. There's like 5-6 examples, and then in halacha there's a lot of examples. Okay, the case of the Shulchan Aruch is going to be you bought an animal, you shechted it, and you found that it was a treifa. Now you're giving it back to him. It's mekach tois. Hold on. You're giving me back this meat? What am I going to do with this? I'm going to sell it to a guy for a little bit of money? If you wouldn't have shechted it, I could have kept the animal and used it as an animal to plow or whatever, to do something with. So now you want to get back your full money, but you killed my animal.
Yeah, but that case, there's always an implied risk when you buy a head of cattle, and even in the shlach places, the cattle that is actually can be considered that the boidik and it's 100%. Lad kosher or bet yosef, a very, very small percentage.
Right, okay, so we're going to get, so the Shulchan Aruch is mechalek between those two types of treifas. Sircha is not sircha. The Shulchan Aruch is mechalek. But the point of the halacha of the case is to bring out a nakuda that if the lokeach damaged the moicher's item, but he kind of had the, and that's the only way he found out about the mum, does he still have the right to return it? So for example, you open up a food package and it's spoiled. Well, if it's spoiled, then regardless, they don't have any value in it. But some of it is spoiled. Or, you, like the case we had before, you open up the shirt and it's not the size that you thought, or is there something wrong with it? Or the case that I saw brought down is you had a sefer, you wrote your name in the sefer, and you had some notes in it. Then later on in the sefer, you find half the pages are missing. So now you already wrote in the sefer. You're going to give it back to him. What's he going to do with it? Now, what's he going to do with it anyway? You know, I guess he could give it back to the original person. There's what?
You're not going to reprint it on the same pages.
Right. There's cases where the Shulchan Aruch brings a case where you buy fabric, and you wanted higher quality fabric. You realize it's lower quality. He could sell it as lower quality, but you cut it up into shapes already. Now you can't sell it even as a lower quality fabric. Okay, so what happens when there's a shinui to the value of the chayfetz? Can you go ahead and return the item? You used it a little bit, and then you realize there's a problem. Now you can only sell it as a used item, can't sell it as a new item, even if you would fix the problem or something like that. Okay, so that's going to be the sugya for Mitzvah Shem for next week. Next week, regular shir Mitzvah Shem. Okay, fine. Shkoyach.
Rabbi, what did I tell you about practical application I use this Torah?
Yeah, let's turn this thing off. You know, Torah? I can't reach. What?